It's Friday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the U.S., and that can only mean one thing. It is time for Friday training race on Zwift's Watopia. This is a race organized by Chris Wiedemann that seems to have grown in popularity every week. Good to see a good number of people show up for this race. And Chris was trying to keep us all in line as we began our warm-up, headed toward the start, which is where the statues are, the two alien-looking things on bicycles. That's the start. So we began around the typical start-finish banner and then move our way toward that warming up. So here you can see we just finished the climb, staying together as a group, starting down the downhill as we are continuing together and make our way toward the statue and the start. Today, this video is not going to be covering the entire race, just looking at some of the moves that happened during the time. And then we'll cover the entire last lap because that's the one that is the most interesting, to be honest with you. But here we come toward those aliens. Don't you think they look like aliens? So here we go. I call it today Attack of the Shoom, and you'll understand that a little more clearly as we move forward. Had a very good group, and immediately there were two riders that went off the front. F. Garcia took off, and then I believe it was a C rider, maybe a B rider, but they were up the road from us, and we were having to chase them down a bit. This is I mentioned a C rider because we have three groups going here: A group, B group, and C group. The A group riders are supposed to be wearing the blue and white and black Zwift jerseys, and the B group riders are supposed to be wearing the yellow and black striped jerseys. I didn't get that memo, so I showed up in a B jersey instead of the A jersey. So that's how you're able to distinguish. However, the best way to distinguish, because you'll notice there are other riders not wearing any of those jerseys, you can notice over in the right-hand side with the list of all the people around you, there's the FTR-A-B-C. That's how you can tell which rider is in which class. But here on the first lap, we really were pretty much staying together. Oh, by the way, some scary things can happen when you're riding on Zwift. I think we're all hollow. Here we are going through the first lap and going into the sprint. And I saw somebody going off there. So I said, well, you know, I'm going to chase him down. Maybe if I get around him, I'll be able to get the green jersey, and whatever happens for the rest of the day, at least I'll have that. Here I was thinking I'm not going to make it, but I was able to get around him, but it was not enough for the green jersey. And then I was feeling pretty tired and was having to chase back with some of the riders. And here we were going through the rolling sections. Always have trouble staying with the group. Find myself lagging behind and then having to catch on. But we were able to get up there. And not as big of a group, but still a good-sized group going toward the finish. So this is the finish line, but it's also when we're going to start the full first lap. Here is where things are going to begin to get serious because we're starting the climb. And you can see that there at the top of the screen. You'll notice the time of the jersey holder and then my time as I'm climbing. You also notice that I'm getting left behind. Every time I'm going up this in the group, you can notice my wattage is 450 plus, sometimes hitting 500, almost for the entire climb. This is my Achilles heel as I go through this race. I'm able to stay with them for a few climbs, but finally it just wears me down. I'm not able to keep going. I'd love to be able to look around and see what the wattage is for the riders around me. I'm certain that some of these guys weigh a little less than I do, and so they're not putting out as much wattage on these climbs. But it's, you can see there, 580, 560, over 500 watts, trying just to be able to hang on to these guys that are beginning to stretch us. Shum is there with me. I'm not certain how much he weighs, but it seems like on these climbs we're pretty similar. As we were coming up this climb, the people I was watching, Shum would be one, Weidman another, Copé, and Garcia are some of the guys that, or at least Garcia and Shum, I'm aware of and know that they can handle it. Weidman as well. So those were the guys I was keeping an eye out for, and if one of them started getting away, I knew I'd have to go after them. We made it up the first climb, and I was able to be there. A lot of times I start getting gapped toward the top and then get lost on the way down. Here you can see Shum making an attack, and that's why I call tonight Attack of the Shum, because this isn't the last time that he does this during the race. That started somewhat of a humorous conversation, as Garcia was saying, leave him out there and let him cook. Of course, Shum could see that he said that while he was up there, getting good enough, like 8-second lead. We began to come together, those behind him, to see if we could bring him back, but not too quickly. We did let him stay out there for some time. Here he has a 4-second lead on us. Now you can see us gaining on him as we come through this turn. Next thing you'll see is us going through the sprint zone area where we get on the bridge, and that's where we make our junction up to him. And it wouldn't be the last time during the race we would need to do that. But getting across the bridge, we have that kick up the hill, 5-6% grade. And on this one, we had Garcia, I think. Nope, there he is. It's Shum again up on the front with Garcia, trying to put a hurting on us. Here again, I'm having to work hard with over 500 watts. Getting over the top, we then were able to relax a little bit. Heart rate for me around 166, 167. That's endurance. I can handle that for a while. Again, I'm seeing myself just continuing to put out watts because of the rolling terrain and getting dropped and then having to try to catch back on. Here we're coming out of the final tunnel onto the straight, the little downhill, and then we're ready to start lap 2. Now I will admit that lap 2 is pretty much the same thing, though we really began to cut down on the field. We definitely had a break by this point, a break of around 6 riders. Those riders included Garcia, Weidman, Copé, Wardell, Shum, myself, and then coming up behind us was NK, one of the FDRC riders. But here we are again watching Shum go off the front on the climb. I was a little bit fearful of this one, that if he could get a gap over the top, it might be hard for me to bring him back. I'm sure with the group it would have been helpful. But as I climbed, I just had to back off and say to myself, don't go too hard. Stay in that under 500 watt limit, because doing that climb at that wattage is going to wear me down too much. So letting some of the other guys go up front to begin to chase Shum down. Trying not to catch him all at once, but rather do it over the entire time. That works. Sometimes it doesn't work, because you think you've got a pace that you can keep going with and nail him back. And then you find out, oops, he's actually slipping away even farther. On this one, it was the fear that Copay, and I guess this is where he was beginning to show himself as being able to really put a hurt on us. So I was beginning to try to chase him down. Thankfully, he let up a little bit. Shum came around. I think he realized the danger too. And here we caught him before we reached the top. So second climb during the race, and trying to get up there so that I could manage my own climb and let them come around me rather than me trying to chase on. It seemed to work, at least for this time. You can see I am dropping back a little bit, but with a little bit of a dig, I was able to pull myself up to the guys and keep my momentum going past the banner, which is important because once they get over the banner, gravity begins to help there. So made that one, and now let's see if I can survive for another lap. I noticed at this point that we had dropped Garcia, which kind of surprised me. I thought he would be with us. And we were now down to Wardle, Copay, Wiedemann, myself, and Shum. Shum attacks again. Doesn't get quite as far away this time, giving him a little bit more of a short leash. Copay made his move. Shum continuing to attack. Wiedemann being there with us. We were down to 5, and I wasn't joking when I said I might be next. Of course, Wiedemann says he might be the one that is next. And ironically, I think it turned out to be close to that, with Wiedemann dropping off and then me almost dropping off immediately. But here at least we're together, heading back across the sprint zone, the bridge, heading up the hill once more with Shum on the lead. He's riding really strong. It's like he's sprinting up this hill. We're just chasing out behind him. I was starting to feel it about this time. You can notice once I can get up, I guess I'm thinking too much about, oh, we're almost to the top. And I let off instead of riding over the top. But I was determined to try to stay with the guys through the rollers. So I kind of increased my cadence a little bit in those times and was able to stay with them. So here we are. There should be 5 of us together, heading down toward the start finish for the 3rd lap. And this would be really the deciding lap for this group. So back to the climb we go. I had no idea what would happen on this one. I felt relatively good. Again, I just decided I was going to try to stay with them, not try to overdo it. And things seemed to be starting out pretty well. Kind of threw me for a loop when I saw Shum go with the Featherlight power up. And I was like, oh no, now I got to get up there because it's going to be 3 against 1 at this point, because you'll notice that Weidman begins to drop back. I am staying in contact, but I'm hurting at this point. Got around Shum, which kind of surprised me. I guess he went pretty hard there. And then Copé really showed his colors on this particular lap and began to get a gap, being followed by Wardle. And I hope I am pronouncing his name correctly. If I'm not, come and tell me. I'll get it right for the future. I think my avatar is showing you how I was feeling. He's getting out of the saddle, falling back into the saddle, getting out of the saddle. That's how my heart was feeling. Up 178, 179, knocking on the door of 180. That is up there for me. Probably 184 would be my max, get ready to puke heart rate. I'll admit, at this stage, I said, well, there's Shum right there. Those other 2 guys, man, I just don't know if I'm going to be able to catch them. Maybe Shum and I can get together and go on the other side. But he put through a monster push there at the end, and you can see that he was able to really close that down and make up to the group ahead. Me, I just fell back. And at this point, I knew that it was over. I noticed that Weidman was behind me. And so, well, if I could just hang out here, maybe I could end up in 4th. But as I continue to go, working, just trying to keep in my zone, 300 watts, just a bit over that, utilizing all the power-ups I could and the cheers from the other riders around me. You'll notice there's a WSR there beside ADZ. ADZ was saying, go FTR. Well, WSR is a group that rides on Saturday mornings. I said to everyone I was switching over. I wanted to show the final lap from the viewpoint of a fan. As I was doing that, I had some issues, and I didn't notice this during the time, but Weidman comes around me and passes me while I was trying to get my keyboard. I think I had sweat on it. It wasn't working correctly. Finally got that started, and I was able to begin filming the final lap. So here we go. We've got 3 guys left. Myself and Weidman have been dropped. Weidman has gotten around me. He's currently in 4th. But we've got Wardle, Shum, and Copé in a 3-man break. I think Weidman was over a minute behind by this stage. I was even farther back because I couldn't even see what I was doing. I was just watching what you're seeing right now as I was controlling the camera. So by this stage, I wasn't caring much. Had some issues as the camera seemed to jump around to different riders, even guys that I wasn't trying to follow, like this particular person. So trying to get back to our riders took some doing. I think it might have been because we weren't on the same list. But finally, I was able to make it back to our 3 breakaway guys. Here they are getting ready to climb. This, I thought, was going to be the deciding factor for the entire race. I was going to put my money on Copé to make it over and to form a gap. Just something was telling me that might happen. But the other 2 guys showed me that I was wrong, as you're going to see. Here they are climbing around 200, 300, 400, 500 watts, though not nearly as high of wattage as I was having to put out earlier. And it got me to wondering if perhaps they were taking it a little easier. Maybe they were tired, and that made me think, oh man, if I could have just made it over that previous climb, then maybe I could have made it up with them on this one. Then again, it could very well be that they weigh a lot less than I do and just don't need to put out as much wattage to get up that mountain fast. So looking at them, watching them, and seeing Kopay begin to push here, Wardle beginning to drop back, and also a gap going on Schum, I was like, yep, I think my predictions were right, because look at him. He's making a difference here. But I began to watch as the other two guys began to put in a dig. Here you can see Schum going up 450, almost 500 watts. Wardle also giving it a push. Kopay wasn't just sitting back, he's pushing pretty hard himself. Up toward the top, and here visually it looks like it's quite a gap. 3 seconds. Is it growing? Is it shrinking? What will happen whenever Kopay gets over the top, which he just did? Is he going to be able to hold that? Are the other two guys going to be able to work together to bring him back? 8 seconds, 7 seconds over the top. I'm proud of the two chasers because they did not give up. Here you can see gaps forming between all three riders. It's hard to be putting out 400 watts at this stage. You've just made that climb. You're probably feeling like dying. And Wardle really put through to catch and the junction over to Schum. As the camera goes out, you can see them gaining down to 5 seconds now. Kopay is 300 watts. If he's doing that much and they're doing 400 watts or thereabouts, you know they're going to catch him at some point. You can see that if you look over to the right under each rider, you can see what type of energy they're putting out. And so you'll notice that Schum and Wardle are putting out more than Kopay at this stage as far as their watts per kilogram, and they're making a move. They're coming up, showing themselves strong, up another little kicker. Then they'll go down through another downhill leading to the sprint. Schum's trying to get a little bit off the front, but it just isn't going to work. They're able to stay together. And at this stage, it appears that they've just called a truce, and they've decided that it's all going to come down to a sprint. There really is only one place where there's a climb of any significance that someone could use as a launching pad. It seemed pretty obvious at this point that none of them were going to be able to just ride away from the other two. So they continued on together back to where we started an hour ago. It took us an hour to get to this stage. 25.4 miles. Of course, they're going downhill, 38, knocking on 40 miles per hour. Cool sun shot there. Aliens in the background. just riding along.
This is going to be a cool video! Exclamation mark.
You just heard me talking to my iPhone. I was sending a message, and there you see it pops up at the top of the leaderboard there. I use the little dictation on the Zwift app. So I talk to it and then push the send button. Saves me from having to try to type that out on my phone or on a keyboard. You'll notice that it's dusk. I guess those are fireflies you saw there. I do not have the ultra graphic setting, so I do not have a light on the front of my bike, but you'll notice they have the little red lights on the back.
Friday training race.
Okay, here's one place where there's a potential for an attack, and I can't recall exactly what happened. My guess is Shum would probably try to attack at this point, but let's see what does happen. Okay, Shum is on the top. You can see him. The avatar is showing that he's starting to put out some wattage. We are following Wardle, and he is really having to put out some wattage. So, yes, Shum made another attack. I'm telling you, that's why we call tonight's video Attack of the Shum. There he goes. The guys, again, close it down. There's not going to be any break here. But it looks like Copé just went over the top. They're leaving Wardle behind a 2-second gap, and it appears going into these rollers that he might get dropped, but he again shows that he's got some strength and really closes it down with a good push. There I am having issues. I kind of stopped here on this particular rider because I was changing the view. We're looking at her. She has the female polka dot jersey, but if you look in the distance behind her, you can see our three riders beginning to gain. So here they come. By the way, if you're just watching this for the first time, the kind of translucent guys. They are artificial intelligence riders. Now our guys got around her, and I went back to check on Weedman. Here he is. But now we're with Shum coming through the rollers. The next thing to come up, our landmark, will be the final tunnel before we go into the straight. If these guys are together right now, it is going to come down to a sprint. Here we are going into the tunnel, and let's see what happens on the other side. I didn't know at this point who to focus on. I knew it was going to come down to a sprint, and I was just hoping I would be able to capture the finish from this view because I thought it was kind of a cool one. So I started out on Shum. Of course, I noticed the other two guys were ahead. Then I said, well, I'll just shift around to the different riders and see what happens. So on this one, I stopped on Copay, and then I noticed the attack. So I didn't do anything else, but Wardle went, and then Copay just really unleashed it. He looks like Mark Cavendish going through there, and he pretty much left them, though Shum was making a move up to him. And so Wardell really just kind of led them out. Of course, come back to myself. I finished several minutes later, but it was worth it to be able to watch those guys and to get the good video. And I hope you enjoyed it.